Shooter Breeze topic number 3 tonight says RICO, which was originally created to fight the Mafia, is now being used to stop organizers. Is this the government's overreach? This came with a link. I'll take us to YouTube as well. Let's watch the video. It's short.
11, the battle to win in the court of public opinion is now waging in full force.
Just hours ago, 61 people were indicted in one massive criminal case, all of them charged with conspiring to use violence to try to stop the construction of Atlanta's future public safety training center.
And tonight, a big part of what their defense may be is already in the works. 11 Alive's John Sherrick has their story.
Protesters exercising their First Amendment rights.
Violence is not political speech.
Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr announcing a grand jury indictment against 61 people, charging them with racketeering, using violence to try to stop construction of Atlanta's new public safety training center.
What I can say is that Dr. King said that violence is the language of the unheard.
Attorney Devin Franklin with the Southern Center for Human Rights in Atlanta says the center is already working to arrange for attorneys for the defendants.
And what we have heard and read in the indictment is not violence. It is alleged property destruction.
It is a distinction, Franklin says, that will be clear when defense attorneys argue that relatively few of the suspects are accused of actual destruction. Attorney General Carr says in this racketeering case, all were involved in some way.
If you come to our state and shoot a police officer, hurl Molotov cocktails at law enforcement, set fire to police vehicles, damage construction equipment, vandalize private homes and businesses, and terrorize their occupants, you can and will be held accountable.
Franklin calls the indictment an overreaction by a government that has failed to silence the protesters any other way.
We are going to be able to make sure that everyone has qualified, competent, zealous legal representation.
All while construction continues on the training center, which as of now is scheduled to open late next year. In Atlanta, John Sherrick, 11 Alive News.
That video is kind of short. I want to play it again because I think there's an opportunity to have a pretty interesting conversation here about this whole RICO racketeering thing. So I'm going to play it one more time and then we'll discuss it.
First tonight at 11, the battle to win in the court of public opinion is now waging in full force.
Just hours ago, 61 people were indicted in one massive criminal case, all of them charged with conspiring to use violence to try to stop the construction of Atlanta's future public safety training center.
And tonight, a big part of what their defense may be is already in the works. 11 Alive's John Sherrick has their story.
Protesters exercising their First Amendment rights.
Violence is not political speech.
Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr announcing a grand jury indictment against 61 people, charging them with racketeering, using violence to try to stop construction of Atlanta's new public safety training center.
What I can say is that Dr. King said that violence is the language of the unheard.
Attorney Devin Franklin with the Southern Center for Human Rights in Atlanta says the center is already working to arrange for attorneys for the defendants.
And what we have heard and read in the indictment is not violence. It is alleged property destruction.
It is a distinction, Franklin says, that will be clear when defense attorneys argue that relatively few of the suspects are accused of actual destruction. Attorney General Carr says in this racketeering case, all were involved in some way.
If you come to our state and shoot a police officer, hurl Molotov cocktails at law enforcement, set fire to police vehicles, damage construction equipment, vandalize private homes and businesses, and terrorize their occupants, you can and will be held accountable.
Franklin calls the indictment an overreaction by a government that has failed to silence the protesters any other way.
We are going to be able to make sure that everyone has qualified, competent, zealous legal representation.
All while construction continues on the training center, which as of now is scheduled to open late next year. In Atlanta, John Sherrick, 11 Alive News.
Yeah, that's interesting what they've done with this RICO stuff over the past few years. They basically turned this thing into all, especially when it comes to black folks, it's just like an all-in law. Like everyone associated for whatever this crime is, and usually the crime is it's something that's hardly criminal. It's like the example is what happened in Atlanta with those school board teachers, right? Who was trying to help the students with what they did, right? They got a RICO charge for that. No violence, no one killed, nothing, but a RICO charge. So it's interesting how these guys build upon their power by instituting these things that could just wipe out whole, the whole backbone, if you will, the activists in a community. Just wipe it right out. And then there's no one left to speak up for the community. Zuli, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I wonder who's that. Are those Democrats? I wonder who's doing these things. Again, I'm not surprised. I'm not shocked. What they're doing is the same thing as people are probably going to disagree with me. This whole thing of bringing charges against the former president because he said the election was stolen. You're okay with that. You're okay for the government to go after a man for saying that this thing was stolen. But you didn't expect this? You think these two are just two independent things from each other? By the time we're done, we will lose all our rights. And this right here is is not even the beginning. It's just how you tell somebody, and I've heard that the people protested, they didn't want this. If the people don't want this, how is this building going up? If the community doesn't want this, how is this happening? So how do we say that, this is countries for the people? The people of that community have spoken. They don't want that, but they're still putting it there. And now they're creating charges. It's basically what they do to the rebellious slave master. They're going to kill those sister people in front of you so nobody ever rises up. So this is all what we're going for when all y'all was standing here while talking about, yeah, was for cancel culture, yeah, was for this, or if you said this on YouTube, yes, ban him. Or if you're a YouTuber and you purposely don't use certain words because you don't want to be demonetized. Y'all bunch of cowards. All these things is your fault, including me. So what do we expect? Rich people want to keep being rich. Corrupt people, and this man is standing there like it's okay to create RICO charges on people because they are protesting. The people told you they didn't want the building. So why are you building it? I thought this country is for the people. So, I'm not surprised of anything. The whole thing with the C-19 thing. Yeah, I was rocking with it. Yeah. But no, you think that's different from what they did to us during the C-19 that destroyed the economy of most of America? Come on, man. This lines up perfectly. I'm all for it. Let's go.
Thank you for that, Zuli. Buana, what say you to all of it?
Yeah, I think that what is happening, like I said, I really don't like to get into much about the internal politics in another man's country. But from what I could see, it seems as if these people are trying to turn the United States into a police state. And the crazy thing is, that, see, people don't study history, and that's fine. But Americans historically have been a revolutionary group of people, like the Haitians, been extremely revolutionary. And that means that when they say enough is enough, they're ready to die on the principles of what build America. Yes, you gonna have people who gonna stand by and say, well, you mustn't bomb me, you mustn't do these things. That's historically, that's not been the history of America. So you could put RICO cases, and let me say this about Trump too, because Trump, I don't think that he should be going to jail on RICO charges. I don't think so. I think that Trump though was responsible for inciting not only a riot, but he started on a platform and indirectly made statements knowingly knowingly that he know that it could have really been a coup in the United States. I mean, that's unprecedented, unprecedented. So he should be made responsible for that. His speech at that particular time. Do I think that it was criminal to do so? Maybe, maybe. Do I think that all the people who was included in him at least attempting to stage what they was trying to stage was wrong? Maybe, maybe. But one of the principles in the United States of America is the free right to speak, unless you do something to create any kind of situations like a riot or even inciting the coup. Yeah, I mean, I think that your speech is going to be prohibited then. But for this particular instance, should they be charged with RICO charges for continuing criminal activities or enterprise? I think that that's an overreach. And I think that at most they should be arrested for destruction of property, for doing things that was untoward for this particular area and place. But for RICO, I think that that's a real government overreach. But I'll stop there.
Appreciate that, Bwana. Carl, you heard everything Zuli and Bwana had to say. What say you?
Well, I think both of them touched on some very important points. To Zuli's point, the prosecutor that is prosecuting these people is the exact same prosecutor that is trying to go after Trump. So yeah, these are Democrats, all right. But one thing the Democrats and the Republicans both agree on, they love the police. That's one thing they both agree on. There's no differentiation in them, both parties, So yes, this is the exact same prosecutor who's going after them. And to Bwana's point, yeah, the United States is turning into a police state. I mean, for Black people, it's already been a police state for them. But one thing I think that I want to kind of touch on is that the actions that these people are doing. Number one, they passed out flyers. There was a young man who was killed in the forest out there. They passed out some flyers calling for the cops to be arrested who killed this young person. They created a fundraiser to raise money for some of the people who are locked up. So it's things like that they're trying to bring under RICO charges, not destruction of property. They're trying to say that the Atlanta protests are an ongoing criminal enterprise for fundraising and handing out pamphlets. This is an attempt to criminalize free speech and the free exercise of rights. And this is definitely government overreach. It's something that I don't know if it'll stand up in court, but probably to this climate, it could very well be the case. But to try to say that this is a criminal enterprise because something that people didn't want, multiple people came out and said they didn't want it, and you ignored what people wanted. They don't want a police training center. Atlanta already has enough problems with the police. And a police training center already exists that they don't even use, not too far from the site. So really, it's more about the having the community, the police having more power, more weaponry, more technology, not training. The police don't need more training. They have plenty of training. For some reason, they have enough training to know they don't have to kill school shooters when they go into school. They know how to take those kids, those white boys alive. They know how to, do everything else. But when it comes to Black people, they need more training. We don't understand. These people are very deliberate in their violence, and they're very practiced with their abuse. So to me, just looking at this stuff, it's all a crock. But the things they're trying to say was RICO, that could affect everybody who are organizing, protesting, setting up, anything that could be done. They could label it as an ongoing criminal enterprise. This is something that's very, very scary, I think, in the long run. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Coco.
This is gonna be.
I appreciate that, Carl. Azuli, your volume is a little low. Speak up a little bit.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
This is gonna be like the crime bill on steroids. This is what it looks like it's gonna be. And you know what they're gonna tell us? they're going to tell our great-grandkids 100 years from now or 50, 60 years from now, oh, we asked for it. Be careful what we wish for just because we didn't like the former president. So that's it.
Any other last words here?
No, I think it's a terrible precedent to set. A terrible precedent to set. And as Zuli was saying, just because you don't like Donald Trump, the pendulum is swing both ways. So you have extremes on the right, you have extremes on the left. And now they're actively doing certain things that is against the rights of the people. But, and then you know what? The crazy thing about it is that even if a Republican government was to come in power in the next electoral year, they are big on police. So they're going to, stand down on these kinds of things, because really and truly, Trump is extreme with police and policing in America. So either which way, you are headed towards a police state, and it's against the principles of what America and Americanism is. So if you are creating another kind of society, then you have to question the social contract of what your citizens is signed on to. People always talk about freedom and freedom and freedom and freedom and freedom. Well, when you have more policing, when the police department looking more like a military on the streets of America, now we have to question whether this is America or Americanism, or if this Russia, or Cuba, So the people really have to stand up and question what's going on here. Are we changing the contract of what America is in terms of so-called freedom and adhering to constitutional rights in America? But I'll leave it there.
So let me say, America has always played fast and loose with their so-called rules. They never really. It's what Marimba Ani when we read Urugu. She talked about the rhetorical ethic. You got some guidelines that you put in place, but you really don't intend to follow them. So this level of violence, or the way the law has been used against Black people in the United States, this is pretty common. They always manage to find some law, some loophole, and this, I think, like the lawyer was saying, this is a reaction because they haven't been able to really stop the protests that have been going on. So this is just them trying something new. They're trying to stack on the charges. It's funny that these RICO charges, you can have somebody in jail for handing out pamphlets longer than Polite's going to be in jail for raping a child. And that's something
crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy.
That's crazy. There's people who be looking at 20, 30 years for this, and Polite's getting out in less than a decade. Where are the priorities?
Well said. In the chat, Afro Native World says, very important fact, brother just dropped. Rhetorical ethic. Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's go to the last topic for tonight then.